Hey everyone. So I think I am live. You'll have to confirm. This is always that awkward part where right at the beginning I have no idea if you can see me yet. So soon enough you'll be able to tell me, and then we'll be able to get on with this. So I'm assuming you can hear some of this or see some of this. So at this point I will simply say that it should be obvious that the camera sucks. I have an old camera. And it might be off sync a little bit. Not much I can do about that, but I do have my nice microphone, so hopefully the voice sounds at least okay. Okay, you can confirm that I'm live. You guys are seeing it. Yeah, go Bulls. It's an old Derrick Rose jersey. It makes me sad, but it is signed. Yeah, okay, good. So can you confirm that sound is okay? I know video is going to be an odd frame. I know it's not going to look that good. It's just a fat guy with facial hair. It's not, you don't need a good image. What's more important is the voice, and hopefully that is okay. So you guys let me know if that's okay, and then we'll get on with this. But the basic point, while I wait for your confirmation there, the basic point of this should be rather obvious. I just wanted to talk about the new Rogue One movie because, I'm a YouTuber, so you have to do, I think it's a law, you have to do a video about a Star Wars movie when there's one that comes out. So, all right, we got people saying it sounds good, sounds great. That's all right. Everybody says the sound is fine. All right, excellent. As long as the sound's fine, that's good. I know the video is, who gives a shit, honestly. Yeah, I also upgraded my internet connection, so it should be slightly better than it used to be, which is fantastic. All right, so I thought what would be kind of fun is to just talk about Star Wars Rogue One, or Rogue One, a Star Wars story, because I'm assuming you must be a nerd if you're here, because this is my channel. But yeah, I thought it would be kind of fun to just talk about the movie and just have a discussion about it and see what people thought about it, etc. So I have a few pre-existing subjects that I thought we could talk about. But, if you guys have other things you want to throw in there, I'm all for it. It's just kind of a back and forth discussion. I thought it would just be kind of fun. But yeah, so I guess I'll just start off by saying overall thoughts on this movie. Well, first of all, spoilers should be obvious. It was in the title. It's in the still. We're gonna really openly talk about this movie. So if you haven't seen it and you actually care about preserving it for yourself, you should not be watching this. But thank you for popping in anyway. But yeah, okay. With that, that's your last spoiler warning. So from there on out, let's go. Okay. So first of all, my basic thoughts on the film. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really a lot of fun as an experience. I thought that the first bit of it was kind of wonky in its character development specifically. A lot of character motivation seemed kind of screwed up, particularly with Jyn Erso, the woman, what's Felicity Jones, the actress, I think. She's like, oh, I don't want to help anybody. I don't want to do anything. I'm a criminal. And then she's just motivated to help them because I know it's supposed to be because of her father and all that stuff, but it just wasn't handled that well. And I'm sure it's because of the ending. They didn't really feel the need to give them that strong of individual characters because they're not going to be ongoing characters. But the second half of the film I thought was fucking fantastic, especially right there at the end. That was just straight up. That was some fucking Star Wars, man. That was a lot of fun. But I'm curious to see what other people thought about the film and just that basic, your first reaction, what you think of it. And then, like I said, I got a list of specific things I want to talk about. And again, the point of this is not just for me to say, hey, this is what I thought of the movie. I want to hear what you guys thought because it's just fun to have an open discussion and see what people think. And I'll try to do my best to kind of read out comments, but I am trying to do multiple things at once here. So a lot of people said that, all right, we got, I didn't think it was bad. I think it was a solid film in my opinion. Though there's a lot of people talking about the whole CG thing. Okay, all right, let's talk about that actually. The CGI thing, specifically in reference to Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia. So obviously Peter Cushing has been dead since 94, so there was no way he was going to be in this movie. And Carrie Fisher, while obviously alive, does not look like she looked in 1977. So you had multiple options if you wanted them in the movie, recasting, just referencing them in other scenes or something, or, using them with CGI, but very sparingly. So So my first, I've seen the movie twice now. I saw it like the day before it came out officially, and then I just got back from seeing it again. So my reaction to it was different both times. The first time I saw it, when I first, because they never referenced ever that they were going to do that. Like, I never heard, that they were going to put these CGI versions of the characters into the movie. I had no idea. That was a complete surprise to me. So when I saw Grand Moff Tarkin for the first time, I was kind of like, shit. Like, I wasn't expecting that, because at first I was like, wow, because I knew it wasn't real. I mean, that was obvious. Not even because of CGI. It's because I know the guy's been dead for like 30 years. But it was interesting to see. But my first reaction is, I can accept the way he looks. That's fine. My problem was actually his voice. I thought was not very good. The guy who did it didn't seem to do a very good impression of Peter Cushing. That was actually more of what took me out of it than the CGI itself. And then you get to the Princess Leia one. When they first show her from the back, you're just like, oh, there's no way they're going to show her. Like, we don't need it. We don't even really need to see that. But then they did, and I was like, ugh. Because, like, I saw some animator talking. I think it was on The Simpsons, actually, on, like, commentary. Animators talk about how it's much easier to animate men and have it look convincing than it is women. Maybe because women are more detailed and women are, beautiful. Whereas men we're allowed to look rougher and nastier, and it's fine. There's something to that. So with Grand Moff Tarkin, it works, but only sparingly. I think they did it a little, possibly too much. At least that was my first reaction. Remember, this is based on my first reaction. So my first reaction to Tarkin was, yeah, that's cool, but what weird. And then like later, like maybe that's a little too much. And then with Carrie Fisher's little cameo, I was like, no, you didn't need that. Now going back and watching it a second time, not having that shock of, oh my God, they're doing this. I accepted Tarkin. I just did. I just accepted it. And when you know it's there, when you know it's obviously not real, and you expect it that time, I don't know, man. Like, I had no problem with it. I was like, okay, I'm right back in there. And even the voice didn't bother me as much that time, although that would have helped. Same goes for the little, like, Carrie Fisher cameo. I thought that worked better the second time, and a lot of things in the movie in general work better the second time. So that would be one of the things I could really say about this movie is go see it a second time, because a lot of the issues that I had, at least the first act of the film, are resolved kind of when you understand what's going on a little better. Now, all right, so let's see what else other people say about these things. What do we got? A lot of people are saying that they did like the CGI, they really didn't like the CGI. People saying, yes, Leia looked more off-putting than Tarkin did. Some people say Tarkin looked really good. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people who are just, the internet is obviously kind of very divided on this, about, whether or not it was any good or not, at least the CGI part. I'm in the camp of, I enjoyed it. It is weird. It's something we're going to start having to get used to in movies, I think, now. There's been a couple of examples before, but now I think we're going to get used to, like, since these are these big franchises and stuff, and you've got these movies that span long swaths of time, you get used to these actors who have passed away. Now they can just bring them back, or it's very bizarre. But I think it's something we're going to start seeing more of. But it's possible that in the few years, they might pull it, ironically enough, a George Lucas on this movie, and go in and make that CGI look even better, so it's more realistic, etc. Because in a few years, once that face capture, whatever it's not face capture, obviously, because he's dead, but like that replication process is probably going to get better and better. The voice synthesis stuff is going to get better and better, and they're probably going to want to go in and fix those to make them sync up better. But yeah, eventually it's going to be kind of weird to see that, but it is what it is, right? So let's see what else people have. Otherwise, I mean, like I said, I have a list of subjects here from the movie. I could just go from those, but I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say on a lot of this. Taylor, yes, the Ghost and Chopper from Rebels were both in this movie. They're not predominant in any way, shape, or form. Chopper just has like a brief cameo past the camera, and the same with the Ghost. It appears in that space battle, just in the background. If you guys aren't certain what I'm talking about or what Taylor's talking about, that's Star Wars Rebels. It's the show that Disney's doing currently. I believe it's currently in its third season. The main characters of that, some of them are referenced in this movie, some are actually seen. I don't remember the names of those characters because I've only watched that show once, but one of them is referenced as General something over the speaker system in the film. So presumably that Syndulla, thank you, Gary. General Syndulla is mentioned over the loudspeaker system in the Rebels headquarters on Yavin 4. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's, again, Taylor, go back and watch this movie a second time. It does really help to see it a second time, because there's a lot of stuff you miss. And then when people point out, like I'm pointing out things to you, you know to go back and look at it. Because I watched a lot of other people's thoughts and reactions to this movie, and they all kind of said, oh, did you notice this or you notice that? I'm like, no, fuck, I didn't. So go back and take a look. Obviously, this is a movie that's very heavy with Easter eggs and things like that. So I guess that brings me to the next possible subject, which would be things like cameos. All right. Okay. So Alexis Skansen, just made a good point that kind of leads in exactly what I was going to say. He says, quote, I just recognized the butt face guy. Okay, he's talking about Ponda Baba, the alien from A New Hope with like the butt face chin, right? And he's next to the guy with like the pig nose and stuff. That guy's character, I don't remember the name of. He's the one who gets his arm cut off in A New Hope, right? So they gave him a weird cameo in this movie, and I was just like, no, I didn't need to see that. That was fan service that was unnecessary. Because that's the thing, you can overdo fan service for sure, and I didn't like that one because it just felt forced. It was like, hey, look, remember those guys from that movie you saw a long time ago? I didn't like that. Plus, it adds a logistical issue into the film because the film takes place like right before A New Hope, so you now have to conclude that those two guys. They were literally about to get to a spaceship, and they left right before all that battle shit, because right after that, of course, that whole city, Jeddah, was destroyed, and they obviously went straight to Tatooine. Like, you just put them into a locked narrative. I mean, maybe that's the joke. Maybe that's all they do is whenever they get somewhere, they just pick on somebody. I don't know. I just didn't like that one. The one that people had a lot of problems with, though, that I did not, was the C-3PO and R2-D2 cameo. Like, logically, they were exactly where they would be, which is just on Yavin 4. Maybe it was the sequence in which it was edited into place that people have a problem with it, because, there's a lot going on in that scene, and then out of nowhere, you kind of just drop to a shot of them. But it didn't really bother me as much, because the only other really logical place you put it is somewhere in the background of some of those Yavin things, which I guess you didn't really need, or on the Tantive 4 at the end of the film, the Princess Leia's ship that's in A New Hope, you would have had to have like Captain Antilles like run past them and have him say like "oh my" or something like that. But it's just, I don't know, less appropriate. So I didn't have a problem with that. But what did you guys think? Walrus Man. A lot of people are talking about Disney doing reshoots. Yes, I want to talk about reshoots in a bit. It's on my list. But we'll see if anybody else... Because again, like I said, guys, I have a list of things I'm open to talking about in case nobody's got stuff for me. But, if you guys have other subjects not on my list, I'd love to talk about it and see how... again, I want to know what people thought of the movie. It seems like a lot of people liked it. We got a lot of people here who are invested in it. Thank you guys, which was 80 of you watching right now, which is actually really surprising. Thank you very much. So yeah, just to recap now, obviously doing a live stream about Rogue One. Sorry about the video quality. Audio quality is really the only part that matters in this. Obviously we're talking a lot about spoilers and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, I hope you guys saw it. Hope you liked it. But if you didn't like it, tell me. I'm curious. I just want to know what people thought of this movie. I just thought it'd be fun to have an open discussion about it, right? Yeah, Mohammed, I will talk about Vader, I promise. That would be a hard one to avoid. Dylan Perry. Okay, I have a question for you, dude. He says, my kids cheered up when they showed up. You're referring to the two characters from A New Hope, like Buttface, Panda Baba, and whatever. Okay. I'm curious. The question I have for you, dude, is did your kids actually enjoy this film? Like, were they scared of it? What was their reaction to it? Because I noticed this is a very, obviously a dark, gritty Star Wars film. Like, kudos to Disney for actually putting this out. This is not what I think a lot of people would have expected of them. And I will say this. If I didn't know anything about Star Wars, I would not understand what the hell is happening in this movie. Because it was just, it's so reliant on you already understanding the mythology and the history and all that stuff, particularly A New Hope, for it to really make any sense. Like, did any of you, I doubt there's any of you in here, but did any of you, was this your first Star Wars movie ever? And if so, what did you think of it? I'd be very curious to see what anybody thinks of that. But for that reason, I'm also curious what kids thought of the movie, because I don't know. It just seems like a hard one for kids to grasp, but maybe I'm wrong. Oh, okay. So Dylan says his kids loved R2D2 and C3PO. See that? Yes, exactly. That I agree with. That makes sense. Those are obviously more iconic characters, and they made sense in there. Whereas Ponda Baba Buttface guy doesn't. He didn't need to be there. Like that was just weird fan service. Yeah. Well, while I wait for your comments to catch up, Angry Croatian Gamer. Yeah, I'm from Chicago, dude. Yes, I am a Blackhawks fan. I'm more of a Bulls fan, obviously, hence the jersey behind me. But yeah, I like the Chicago Blackhawks. I hope they win the Stanley Cup this year. That'd be great. And the Cubs won this year. How awesome was that? Unless you're from Indiana, or not Indiana, Ohio. Sorry. Then I know it wasn't awesome for you. Let's see. All right, Derek Sega Mischief says he wasn't invested in that many of the characters. He doesn't remember the characters' names. That is a common complaint with this movie. And the first time coming out of this film, I completely agree. I was just like, man, I don't remember anybody's name from this movie other than the characters I already knew, like obviously Darth Vader and stuff like that. I think the only one I retained upon initial viewing was Krennic, Director Krennic. But then again, I have seen it twice now and I still don't remember his first name. A director is obviously not his first name. It's just his title. But upon second viewing, I definitely got more of them. Galen Erso, Jin Erso, Cassian. I will say I still don't remember the blind guy's name or the other dude. K2S4, I think, is the droid. It's doing I'm learning them. But there's a difference between like going out of your way to try and memorize some of these names and some of them just making an impression. So I have to say the only character that was introduced in this film that gave me that initial impression where I was like, this person's name is worth learning upon just initial reaction, Krennic. He was, of course, the guy in like the white suit who built he didn't build the Death Star, but he was most responsible for it and stuff. That guy's name was the only one I retained. Was that the same for you guys? Because I will say, in regards to that, character development, I think, was a big part of the problem, and I think that has something to do with Disney's reshoots. If you guys aren't aware, this movie went through a lot of reshoots, and you can really tell when you go back and watch a lot of the trailers, you'll notice a lot of the footage in the trailers is not in the movie. And some people are saying, oh, no, that was Disney kind of, trying to mislead people by telling you, this is the direction the story goes, but really it goes this other way. Like, it's going to have cheesy lines like, this is a rebellion, isn't it? I rebel. When that line's never in the movie. There's the shot of Urso. Wow, I knew her name before, and all of a sudden I can't. Not Galen. Jen Urso. Wow. Okay, that's funny. I can't remember her name now. You guys help me out. But the woman, Felicity Jones, she's on that balcony there, and there's a TIE fighter and stuff. That shot's not in the movie. A lot of the shots are not in the fine cut. There's also a lot of shots of them storming the beach, including Miss Urso, on the beach with like the hard drive, like hard drive style Death Star plans. And none of that is in the movie. So we're unsure as to why that stuff was cut, but we do know there were a lot of reshoots. I think a lot of the character development, particularly in the first third, maybe even the entire first half, was sacrificed because of the reshoots. Particularly everything that has to do with Forrest Whitaker. Forrest Whitaker played the dude from Clone Wars, the guy who's like Saul Guerrera. See, I remember him. Saul Guerrera played Saul Guerrera, and his character makes like almost no sense. Like, he's clearly a guy who's lost his mind and he's fighting a cause and he's been fighting it for too long. That part I got. But like, his motivations are not only insane, they like just straight up don't make sense at all. The whole thing he does to the pilot was not logical, especially with that big squid monster thing. Like, that didn't need to be a thing because that had no payoff of any kind. Like, you could have just cut that out of the movie. And I think the reason they didn't cut it is because it's like, no, we already animated the squid thing. It's staying in the movie because that costs like $100,000 to make or something. Because like if you go back and watch those trailers, all right. Here's my biggest piece of evidence with Forrest Whitaker, and why I think reshoots had a big problem. If you look at the final film, there's only 2 shots of Forrest Whitaker when he's younger. There's like this one shot of him like right at the beginning of the film when they show like him on screen on this like little green screen and stuff. And then there's the one shot where he, gets Miss Urso out of the hole there. And Saw Gerrera, thank you. I keep calling him Forrest Whitaker. When Saw Gerrera, you see him twice as a younger dude. Once when there's like that green screen at the beginning, and then shortly after that when he gets Miss Urso out of the tube thing. And then like later, he's just old. Like he's just older and crazier. But if you go back and watch the trailers, like all the trailers had him being younger. And I have a feeling that whole thing where they talk about their history, like, I was, we lived together for like 10 years. You trained me as a soldier and all that stuff. I have a feeling they actually showed us a lot more of that initially. And then they were like, this is taking too long to get to the exciting stuff. Let's cut all this out and just sum it up in a line. I kind of feel like that happened, but I don't know because a lot of the footage that we know was cut as well is stuff from the third act, which is like, it comes off as almost flawless, the stuff with the beach. Like I said, there's shots of Jyn Erso running with like the Imperial plans on the beachfront. And I don't know if those are shot as just like trailer material or what, but that was odd. So we don't know. And as some people have pointed out, they'd love to see an extended cut with all that kind of stuff. I'd be very curious to see that too. No, I am not a soccer. It's a weird question. But thank you. Am I a football? Is that I don't get it. But yeah, so what's with all the sports questions? My opinions on cricket and pro wrestling. I have none. My thoughts on politics in France. I was just in Paris last month. That was fun. Your politics did not seem to affect me. Not that I'm aware of. Okay. All right. Yeah, SOTN TV, which is Symphony of the Night TV, says, yes, needs an extended cut. I'd be very curious to see what an extended cut of this would contain. But yeah, so... yes, I do watch Rebels, or at least I've watched the first 2 seasons. I haven't watched the 3rd season yet. I have every intention of doing that. Let's see. Okay, let's talk about the whole Vader thing. Okay. Now, obviously, Darth Vader is in this movie. He's got basically 2 scenes, like 2.5, because there's footage of him like on a Star Destroyer, but just kind of looking at stuff. He doesn't really do anything. And there's actually Darth Vader footage that's in the trailers that's not in the movies too, which says a lot. Now Darth Vader. All right. I'm just gonna. All right. I was gonna say something, but I probably shouldn't. So what I will say is Darth Vader. Yeah, he's obviously a very iconic character, so everybody wanted to see him. I got to see a little bit of that when I was at Star Wars Celebration back in this summer, in like July in London. That was cool. But in the movie, I thought his first scene, the first time I saw it, when he comes out and he's just talking and stuff, I had a real hard time focusing on what he was saying. This is totally my own fault. I was solely focused on James Earl Jones's voice. And the reason for that is my buddy Matt Sloan voices Darth Vader for like the video games and stuff like that. And we had a big debate on whether or not James Earl Jones was actually going to sound like Darth Vader anymore. So I made the mistake of actually listening for his voice as opposed to what the character was saying. So I kind of like missed all the information in that scene, which was like, so a lot of that line that everyone hates now, the choking on your own ambition line that people hate, I missed that completely the first time I watched it. My initial impression of his voice was that I didn't think he was doing a very good job. Now it had something to do with his age, but then again, as a lot of other people point out, like Vader sounds very different in A New Hope than he does in the other movies, and likely what they were trying to do was emulate that movie more so than Empire or Jedi, which frankly people more associate Vader's voice with, particularly Empire. So that was kind of they were kind of a damned if they do, damned if they don't, because if they do it, they get the reaction of people being like, why did he sound so weird? But if they didn't do it, then they have the thing like, well, he sounded different in A New Hope, and A New Hope takes place right after this, and so, you screwed up, Disney. You screwed up. You don't want that. So I think they just kind of kept him off to the side a little bit. And that's why he only had a couple of lines, just for fan service, but to also serve the plot as well, because he had to eventually be there. That said, the costume had the same issue. It was just, they tried to give you the A New Hope costume, when really, exactly the same problem. It's just the same damn problem. I didn't like I guess if I had to be honest about it, I didn't really like the costume, and I didn't really like his voice as much, at least on a first viewing. But it's for those reasons. It's because they were trying to make him sound like he sounded in 1977, whereas obviously he improved over the course of those movies. The Tinos. Whoa, didn't expect Francis here. I guess that's Boogie's impression, is it not? Oh well. Yeah. What the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah, Darth Vader. Okay, so then he has that second scene on the Death Star, or not the Death Star, the Star Destroyers, and I thought that was fine because he doesn't really do anything. But then there was that scene at the end that is fucking badass. That's what a lot of people have been saying. I know I'm obviously not the first person to say so, but that Vader sequence at the end where he just takes out the lightsaber and he's just cutting down all the rebels and everything, that was awesome. And that's something that you never really got to see out of Vader because of the limitations of the 70s and the 80s. You were perpetually told that Darth Vader was like this amazing Sith badass, basically, even though the word Sith never appears in those films. You're told that, but you never really get to see it. And it was just a technical limitation. Like, David Prowse couldn't do that. The technology didn't exist, etc. Now they can. And I'm betting this is kind of testing the waters for a possible just Darth Vader film. And I know people will be like, no, but the prequels, they were a setup for Darth Vader. I think in Disney's hands it'll be more capable. Plus, the actual character of Darth Vader rather than Anakin Skywalker could work a lot better. There's I haven't read it, but I've seen a recap on it basically. But there is a Darth Vader comic that is canon that takes place post I believe it's post Empire, but pre Jedi. Or no, sorry, post A New Hope, pre-Empire, that basically tells the story of how he went back to Tatooine very briefly, how he kind of flipped out there, how, he started tracking down, who was the rebel that destroyed the Death Star, and then he finds out it was a Luke Skywalker, when he, at that moment, realizes, oh man, the Emperor has been lying to me forever. And so that's when he starts planting his seeds of betrayal, which you see more of an Empire because he becomes obsessed. Even the opening crawl says it. He's become obsessed with finding young Skywalker. There's a reason. And, he starts plotting betrayal of the Emperor and all that. It all kind of seeds from this story. So I would actually like to see that movie, especially while James Earl Jones is still around. Now, the irony is, as I just mentioned, my buddy Matt does his voice for the video game. So when James Earl Jones goes, which I hope he stays around with us for a long time because we all want the authentic Vader, of course. But my buddy is going to probably have that job at some point, and that'll be an interesting thing to see. But I would say get James Earl Jones while you still can, man. Get that Vader movie under construction, because when I look at these movies that are coming up, obviously Episode 8, and I want to see it just like everyone else does. Then we know the next one after that is the Han Solo movie, and then after that it's Episode 10. I don't know if we know what comes after that, but I'll tell you right now, the Han Solo movie, I don't really care. I don't care. And that's fucked up because I love Star Wars, but that's the first one they've announced that's coming up where I'm like, I don't really give a shit about that one. Aaron Masterson, yes, my buddy Matt did the voice of Vader for Star Wars Battlefront. Yes, the new one, the EA one, not the older ones. He also did it for Force Unleashed 1 and 2, Soul Calibur 4, Star Wars Kinect, and others. I don't remember what else. But yeah, anyway, so the Han Solo movie, I don't really care about that one. This one I liked a lot, and it's largely because what I like about it is that it found a spot in the lore that we're all kind of aware of, and there's a story there, just a small story. It's mentioned in the opening crawl, and they found a way to just kind of boom, just make an entire movie out of that one little bit. I have massive respect for storytellers that can find ways to inject stories inside of other stories that we already know and have them work and have them fit and connect. I know you guys probably aren't too familiar with my other channel, Game Society Pimps, but we do a show on there called Skyrim for Pimps, and one of the things I pride myself on in that show is doing exactly that. We created a lore, and then I created ways to tell stories inside of the lore to make it all kind of tight knit into its own universe and stuff. I respect the shit out of that kind of storytelling, and so Rogue One to me was amazing on that. It's why Star Wars in general is a lot of fun, especially because it's told in such an odd order, but when you watch it all together, like, holy shit, this is really cool. Except for all that legend stuff, which obviously got deleted from continuity, but whatever. So yeah, let me. I'm gonna go ahead and take some comments here before I go back to more of my subjects. So bear with me as I stop here. If you're just joining us, or if you've been here for a little while, hey, we're talking about Star Wars Rogue One because I'm a YouTuber and you got to do that. It's a rule. I wanted to talk about it. I thought it'd be fun, but rather than just be like, here's everything I thought of the movie, I wanted to talk to you guys and just have an open discussion with it, not like shoot something in advance and just give you my information and see what you guys think later in the comments. I want to see live what you guys think. And I apologize because it's really hard to keep up with the comments, obviously, because in addition to talking, I have to read everything, but I'm trying my best. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully the audio quality is still solid. If I can get some confirmation on that, that'd be great. I know the video camera is not the best, but it is what it is. Dylan Perry, many Bothans died. Here's the story. Yeah, that a lot of people get that screwed up because the Bothans dying thing is in regards to when the rebels get the plans or whatever for the second Death Star, not the first one. So this movie's on the first Death Star. The second Death Star, I mean, you could theoretically have a Rogue 2 that's all about those Bothans getting the plans to figure out how to destroy the second Death Star. I don't know if we need that now that we have this, but it would be interesting because that's more of like a one-off line rather than an entire explanation inside of the crawl. The crawl. Let's talk about the crawl. So this is the first Star Wars movie, except maybe Clone Wars. I honestly don't remember if Clone Wars, which is a canon film that came out in theaters, by the way. I don't remember if that had a crawl. Now I'm starting to think it didn't. But this one is at least the first live-action Star Wars film, canon, not the Ewok Adventures or whatever, that didn't have a crawl. And I thought for the longest time, no, fuck that. As soon as they announced it, I was like, fuck that, you need a crawl. Like, being the fan that I am, wanting my own, thing. As the filmmaker in me, because if you guys don't know, I went to film school, was like, no, you got to let the filmmaker tell his story. If he feels that it's better without that, then let's go that way. So I was like, I'll give it that chance on that basis, right? And so I watched it, and my initial reaction to the lack of the crawl was like, fuck this, like right there in the theater. I'm like, no, like fans, like just being a child, irrational. I'm 30 years old. Why should I give a shit? But I did anyway. And then I realized immediately that all of a sudden I was totally on board. And the reason I was on board with the crawl being gone was that this movie, unlike any other Star Wars movie, takes massive liberties with its storytelling as far as time jumps go. We don't see that in other Star Wars movies. So what I mean by that is the opening scene is Krennic and Galen Erso and Jen Erso and Mrs. Erso, the mother, all in a scene there together that takes place when Jen Erso is just a kid, right? And then it fast forwards after that scene like 10, 15 years. You don't see that in any other Star Wars movie. You just don't. And the whole point of the crawl is to give you enough backdrop to drop you right into the story, wherever it starts to take place. That doesn't work with that particular story because it would be like, there was a scientist who, was working on this thing, and then he went to go hide out, and now he's been hiding here for like a year, and then you just get there, and then all of a sudden the time jumps forward. So maybe you disagree with me on that. Maybe you think it still could work. I kind of get it, because the whole point of that is to give you enough backstory to get you locked into the next week of adventure, whereas that movie does massive time jumps. So I think it did kind of defeat the purpose. Kathleen Kennedy, she's the basically the head of Lucasfilm now. Her basic position on it was that only the saga films, meaning like episodes 1, 2, well, obviously those already have it, but like episodes 7, 8, 9, etc., are the only ones that are going to have it, whereas these anthology films, which are side stories, are not going to have it. And I guess to make it bigger, I guess was the logic. But my counter to that would have been, even the video games had crawls. But after seeing the movie, I'm in agreement. That it didn't need the crawl. But one thing I thought was kind of fucking shit was when they actually do the Rogue One title credit. It's just called Rogue One. I hated that. This movie really, the titles were obvious. Star Wars Rogue One. That's what it should be called. That's what everyone's been calling it. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, is not a good title. And even in the movie, they just call it Rogue One. I didn't like that. And I really didn't like the music that was presented on screen when they said Rogue One. I'm sure it threw me off, and it really took me out of the movie. And I was like, that of all things took me out of the movie more than the first time I saw the CGI faces and the first time, just anything, any of the possible negatives throughout the movie. And there's only a few, in my opinion, that threw me off the most. I did not like that at all. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I've seen so many good questions that I keep just not answering. I'm so sorry, guys. I swear I'm trying. Okay, commenter 38. That's a great question. Obi-Wan standalone movie. Fuck yes. I would. All right. Fuck the Han Solo movie. I don't care about it. I don't want to see it. Han Solo had his entire thing. His story, as far as I'm concerned, begins in A New Hope. You don't need anything prior to that. We just don't need it. We got everything we need to know about him. I just don't need that story. I don't care. Lando debatably is more interesting only because we haven't seen much of him. The problem with Han is that he was around for too long. Han was supposed to die in Return of the Jedi. Like, that was the original plan. And one of the conditions in which Harrison Ford even did Force Awakens was that, he would die and his character's death would have a point. Whereas when he was supposed to die in Return of the Jedi, it was supposed to motivate characters to do stuff. Instead, he really had nothing to do in the movie towards the end. I mean, yes, he was fighting in the rebellion, but he was just a guy doing that. His death or his life had no point. Then they arbitrarily throw on, okay, now you're just going to be dating Leia, which, as Force Awakens points out, clearly doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It's not actually a good union. So point is, he doesn't need more. He doesn't need more of a story. We don't need that. But Obi-Wan, that dude... All right, first of all, Ewan McGregor is like one of the big highlights of the prequels. I think even the people who hate the prequels will agree, yeah, Ewan, he brought his A game in that context, right? And we already know Ewan McGregor's on board, at least conceptually. And here's how we know that. Multiple times. You can go look it up for yourself. There's interviews and stuff. People ask him, like, would you like to see an Obi-Wan movie? And he's always been like, yeah, hell yeah. He just says it out loud. And then there came a point where they kept asking him. And he went from, yeah, hell yeah, to like, I'm sorry, I can't talk about that. Let me give you some PR 101 type of answer. I'm in talks doing something officially, so I have to deny anything, but I can't really deny it. So you just try to shut down the question. So obviously none of us know for sure an Obi-Wan movie is coming, but I would bet that there will be one and that he will play it. And I would love to see that movie because that's a character who's got like the weight of the universe on his shoulders because in a sense it's all his fault. And he didn't deserve any of this shit that happened to him. He was a straight up good Jedi dude. And, he, as far as he's concerned, he royally fucked up with Anakin. He screwed that all up. You see that at the end of Revenge of the Sith when he kind of basically takes the blame for himself. He's just depressed and everything. And now he has to go live on the butthole of the universe, Tatooine. Or, if there's a center of the universe, this is the planet it's farthest from. Fan service. He has to live on that, watching over this kid who is the offspring of the guy who murdered everyone he cared about. That's tough, man. So, and all the while he has to do his best to basically keep the Empire from knowing that this kid exists. And at the same time, he's not even allowed to see him because, like, Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen and stuff, they're like, this guy's fucking crazy. We want nothing to do with him, blah, blah, blah. So I think that could be a really interesting story, and we know Ewan would do it. I think that'd be a much better movie than the Han Solo movie the thing is, I know I'm not alone in that. I've seen you guys say it right now. A lot of you don't give a shit about the Han Solo movie. And I've seen a lot of like people making other YouTube videos talking about Rogue One, and they're talking about, because this is the first of the anthology films, right? The next one is the Han Solo movie. And a lot of people are just saying like, nah, I don't really don't care about a Han Solo movie. And that's not a good sign when like the diehard Star Wars fans are like, like to me, the scene in this movie, Rogue One, where Ponda Baba, butt-faced dude, and the other guy, the pig-nosed dude, show up, and they're like, hey, remember us? Like, that would be a whole movie of that. That's how that feels. Like, you guys remember Han Solo. He was the character you really liked. Remember when he died in Force Awakens? That was so sad. Let's give you a whole movie of just him. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't care. I don't want that. I'll see it because I have no choice. Look at me. I'm wearing a Darth Vader hoodie. But $9 at the Disney store on clearance. Fuck yeah. But anyway, I just don't need that movie. And it sounds like a lot of you say that. Opinion on the Boba Fett movie. Unpopular opinion. Also don't give a fuck. I don't need a Boba Fett movie. He's best used as a side character. He's best used as a character who just helps move things along and becomes like a villain and stuff. The only way you get a good Boba Fett movie is if it's like this spy movie. Like what I think they're either going to do is fuse him into the Han Solo movie, which I really hope they don't do, because we don't need, hey, you guys remember that Han Solo and Boba Fett don't like each other? Well, here's a whole movie of them not liking each other, but it takes place before all that stuff, so they always didn't like each other. I don't need that fucking shit. I don't need that movie. But the same thing with a Boba Fett movie, man, because what do you do? You know, like, you have to basically go back to Geonosis and start with this whole Attack of the Clones era, where he's a little kid and everything, and do we really need a story about another little kid who got angry and became a bad guy? Does that ring any bells? We don't need that shit. I mean, Clone Wars, the show, did a couple of great episodes, all about Boba Fett as a kid, and they were fantastic. That's all you need. You don't need more than that. I don't want to see him as an adult either, because his story is done. His side adventures, he only works best if he's mixed into the context of a bigger story. One thing I will tell you, though, if you have been watching the stream since it started, I talked about the Darth Vader comic and how that comic makes a really good story that is canon. And it's largely about Darth Vader when he first finds out that, Luke is his son and all this shit. The person he finds that out from, I believe, is Boba Fett. And hello, just make the Darth Vader movie and then give Boba Fett a lot of screen time in it. It would give Darth Vader and Boba Fett a nice, like, origin story, not origin story, but like more of an introduction to each other. And then, of course, it'd be great if, Boba Fett, what's Darth's line? No incinerations, or what does he say? Somebody help me out. I feel like an idiot. All of a sudden I can't remember. In Empire, when Vader's no disintegrations. There you go. There'd be a great if there's a scene in there where, Boba Fett disintegrates a guy and Vader's like, dude, bruh, you didn't need to do that shit. I didn't need him disintegrated. Like, that's where the only place I would want to see Boba Fett is. I want to see him inside of other characters' movies. I don't need an entire Boba Fett movie. Clone Wars TV show was way better war scenes than Rogue One. I disagree, but I mean, at the same time, you're talking about an animated show that had 6 years of production. I would go with this, but that's me. Skywalker1138 disagrees with me on the opinion of the Han Solo movie and concepts. There are plenty of stories hinted at in the movies that I would want to see. I simply disagree. I'm willing to be proven wrong. I obviously will go into the theater with a very open mind, and if they give me an awesome movie, I'll be like, fuck, I was wrong. But at the moment, I just don't want a Han Solo movie. I don't need it. But, that's me right now anyway. But I admit I can change my mind. They can present something to me where I'm like, fuck, okay, yes, I'm on board. But, I mean, the thing with Rogue One, I was always on board. Like, the second they announced just the base concept, it was like, this is all about the guys who steal the plans to the Death Star. Yes, sign me up. I am in. I get it. That's great. Because that's a lore story. It's something that adds to the whole universe of events. And it's not about the fucking Skywalkers. Whereas Han, well, by marriage, sort of, at the end, he becomes a Skywalker. I just don't need his story anymore. I think we have enough of it. Plus, you have to get over the whole weirdness factor of him not looking like Harrison Ford, unless we have an entire movie of young Han Solo CGI face. Yeah, think about that. Because now we have to accept, based on Rogue One, that if there's ever a young Carrie Fisher and stuff, CGI face. She's not going to be recast. Grand Moff Tarkin, same deal. Do you really want that? And if now we have to accept, well, how does that work? Because if you have a young Han Solo who's just a recast, okay, but why? Why doesn't it look like Harrison Ford then? You see what I'm saying? It starts creating other problems that you probably didn't even foresee. That one just hit me, so I haven't fully fleshed it out, obviously, but Taylor Wood, 2003 Clone Wars is so good. Yeah, I assume you're talking about the one by Gennady Tarkovsky or whatever. You know, he went to my college. That was pretty cool. That animated show is good. It's like half canon, half not. There's parts of it that Disney decided are canon, and then parts that are erased from canon. Like a lot of the stuff from the first half is canon, like the stuff with Asajj Ventress and like why Anakin and her hate each other. But then like the final battles of that are not canon. It's weird. And then there's certain aspects. It's whatever. It's a good show though. You should still watch it. But the CGI one is completely canon, as is Rebels. Someone asked earlier about what I think about the idea of them doing a new movie every year. Currently, I'm on board. I love Star Wars. This is like getting another Christmas every year. But could it go bad? Yeah, it could go bad with the Han Solo movie, quite frankly, because I don't want to get fatigue, you know. I don't want to get franchise fatigue. Like, obviously a lot of you guys associate this channel more with video games, so you're probably very familiar with that kind of thing. I don't want us to get to Call of Duty like territory, where every year we're like, oh, okay, right, it's here again, woohoo. I don't want that. So I hope that they're smart enough to space it out a little. Like, clearly they have their current slate, which is 7, 8, 9 with like anthology films planned in between. I'm really hoping that maybe they take their foot off the pedal a little bit after that, switch over to TV or something for a little bit, give us a year or two off from movies, just so that personally, this is why it's an interesting debate. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. I think I would have a hard time getting sick of Star Wars, but I don't represent everybody. And if the mass market, the mass amount of people just decide I'm fucking done with this, you're going to start seeing less Star Wars movies, not because they choose not to give them to you, but because they're not doing well. And that's much worse. Plus, you'll get creative fatigue because these are human beings making these things, man. And if they're getting exhausted, the work's going to show. And you're going to start getting bad movies instead of just mediocre or good movies. Currently, they're on a pretty good track. Though I still hated the end of Force Awakens. But I literally did an entire live stream like this about Force Awakens. So you can go watch that. Angry Croatian Gamer. No, I don't hate FIFA. What? I don't watch soccer. I'm an American. I don't know how many Americans actually watch soccer. Excuse me, I want to take a drink here. Because professional. Yeah, commenter 38. I'm sure I am off sync. The microphone is substantially better than the camera. Hey, Nameless Shout, what's up? Okay, so obviously more people are joining us now. Wow, there's 120 of you watching. Thank you. It's amazing. I really wasn't expecting that good of numbers. If you guys could do me a solid, I hate to ask you this. Can you press the like button if you're liking anything about this at all? Just because I'm sure you guys are very familiar with YouTube's new bullshit policies, and I appreciate it if you can. If you don't want to, it's cool. I don't hold it against you. No, I don't have an Action 52. Andy Hamill, what are they going to do after Han Solo film? That's when episode 9 comes out, I think. So 7, Rogue One, 8, Han Solo, 9. We don't know after that. But some people are speculating the Obi-Wan film. God, I hope that's true. Other people are saying that it would be the possible Boba Fett film. Though I think the Boba Fett film was actually killed. I think they actually killed that because I think there's a lot of talk that they were going to fuse it into the Han Solo film, though we're not totally sure of that. Thank you everybody for the likes. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, so we don't know that one yet, unless somebody does, and I'd love to hear it. What camera am I using? Currently for this, I'm using some like old Logitech 720p broadcast thing that my sister bought like years ago. It's the best webcam I have because I don't live stream enough to really justify buying a new webcam. The only thing that it might look better now because it's broadcasting in 720p, whereas it used to broadcast in like 480p because I recently got to upgrade my internet better, so the connection's more stable. So at least you can get 720p, so we can all be like, "Yay! It's 2008." I upgraded my internet from 2008 to like 2013. Finally, woohoo! Catching up. All right. I'm gonna go back to my list. Do I hate LJN? I don't. Oh, the game publisher that once was. I I never really liked any of their shit. I don't hate them, but I never really cared that much about them. Let's see. I'm going to just read a random comment. Let's see. D. Pretam was watching this through Twitter before, but if Vader was lied to about Padme and his unborn kids, I wonder what Kylo Ren was lied to about to go to the dark. We don't know, man. That's one thing that The Force Awakens did that was quite smart, and J.J. Abrams is on record as being this type of filmmaker. He likes to do what's called the mystery box. That's what he calls it, which is you just set up a bunch of things that have questions, but you don't answer any of them. And the logic is not that you have all the answers as the storyteller. It's that you think, hey, maybe we can answer those later. So you give people a reason to be interested, and they just keep following the question, even though there isn't necessarily an answer. He gets made fun of it for a lot, because sometimes when he finally gives you an answer, it's just a weak sauce answer. But I mean, like, don't forget, this is the guy who was behind Lost and stuff like that. So with Force Awakens, he, I think, put in a lot of this. Oh, what about this? What about this? Here's a question. Ooh. And then I'm sure Disney has some sort of plan now, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like, they're like, we'll just set up all this stuff, and it just gives lore and all these options. Like, that's what they want, is options, and then they figure out what works later. So, you know, your guess is probably just as good as Disney's right now. Although they're actually filming Episode 8, so they're probably a little bit better off. Do you check your Star Wars list twice? Oh, hey, Epic Martin. Yes, I have a Star Wars list over here of just subject points in case I couldn't come up with anything from the chat. But you guys have been pretty good, so I haven't really had to look at it too much. Boba Fett movie has been in development hell since the prequels. Yes, there was. Yeah, I remember that. Where the actor who played Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones, the kid, there was going to be some sort of movie with him, like as he was growing up, and that in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope era, but that never came to be. Cassian was justified. That guy would have talked. Oh, you're talking about when he killed that dude? Yeah. I mean, that was an interesting moment in the theater. Because, at least on the second viewing, because on the second viewing there were more kids in the theater, and a lot of the kids were like, "Oh," and like their mothers were like, "Oh," like they didn't see that coming, because that was a very cold-blooded moment, you know. And like, I didn't have a problem with it. It was interesting to me to see the grittier side of the rebellion, because to see them always depicted as like the flawless, perfect good guys of the galaxy versus the evil bad guys who are 100% evil all the time. They're more in a gray area than you think, and that makes sense because that's how any rebellion or any military would operate. So that I like that they showed the grittier and darker side of those things. So Jyn Erso didn't get a medal. Now that you think about it, Jyn Erso got fucked just like Chewbacca. She didn't get a medal. She did just as much, if not more, than Han Solo did. Just saying. Just saying. Do we want more Vader dad jokes or less? What? Oh, here's something I learned today. This is something I never knew about Darth Vader, but it's something that I don't think could have existed. I don't think you could have put this in a movie back if the internet existed back in the 80s when they made these, in the 70s. Do you guys know that Darth Vader is actually, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Norwegian, maybe Finnish, something like that, one of those Northern European countries. I apologize. If you're actually from there, you can correct me on this. I'm an American. We don't know this shit. But Vader actually means father. So his name is Darth Father. The clue that he was Luke's father all along was always there. George was thinking. And it's one of those things, like, had the internet existed back then, that would have been given away, like, right away. So that's interesting. So, who funds the rebellion? Mon Mothma, who is the woman in white, as well as Bail Organa, Jimmy Smits. Both of them are in this movie. They are the primary financiers of the rebellion. Interestingly, about both of those characters, I mean, I believe Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa actually says that in Revenge of the Sith at some point. We'll use my wealth to fund the rebellion or something like that. But the interesting thing about that is I think he says it in a deleted scene along with Mon Mothma, who's... Oh, God, you guys. Oh, hey, Lucas. What's up? Hang on, guys. 1 second. I'm just going to say hi to Lucas. Not George Lucas. Okay, my mouse is being a dick. All right, Lucas, I'm trying to make you an admin, but... Hey, all right, Lucas is an admin now, or he's supposed to be. Yes. Anyway, sorry about that. What the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah, the deleted scene. So there was a Revenge of the Sith, guys, was at one point, did you guys know this? That movie was 4 hours long in George's original cut of the movie. All right. Sully Android says, in German, Father Vater, Dutch is Vader. So there you go. Lucas, can you confirm that actually worked? Okay, it says that it worked. Yay, there he is. Okay, Lucas the Chin, that is your new admin. Fear him, for he is brutal and cruel. He is the Darth Vader of my admins. Not really. Lucas, if you go off the handle. That's right. Okay, but yes, back to the point. So we were talking about Revenge of the Sith. So at one point, George Lucas's movie was 4 hours long. 4 fucking hours. And the logic, apparently, we knew there was a big like information dump in like 2015 after he'd sold off Star Wars and a few years had gone by, and all these people who worked for George at the time were no longer really afraid to talk about it anymore. There was a lot of information that came out. One of them was that the movie was originally 4 hours long, and that more or less George's goal with Revenge of the Sith was to kind of, I'm not going to say fix episode 1 and 2 because you couldn't really do that, but dude, let's talk manga. Lucas is my apprentice. He works with me on my other channel, Game Society Pimps. We go to like media events and stuff. He's my buddy. What's up, man? But again, if you fuck up, okay. I have to stop getting off subject. I apologize, everyone. We were talking about episode 3 briefly, just to make some sort of point, which was that originally the movie was 4 hours long, and it was meant to kind of fix a lot of the backstory issues that 1 and 2 were meant to achieve, but failed to do so. And so George Lucas tried to accomplish all this, but it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. And some of the stuff that we know was cut because it was included on the DVDs and the Blu-rays. There's an entire subplot about the birth of the rebellion with Bail Organa's in it, Padme's in it, and the actress who played Mon Mothma in Rogue One is in those scenes playing Mon Mothma. And the idea was to give Padme more of a point as a character, because in the final cut of Revenge of the Sith, she does nothing except give birth. She doesn't do anything. She's like furniture in that movie. But originally, she was supposed to create a kind of a distrust between her and Anakin. Like she was creating this rebellion against his wishes, and she was going to get caught lying about it, and he was going to start to distrust her more and more and more until you get to that end scene where he's like, I no longer believe in you, and he like chokes her and all that shit. That made a lot more sense when you think about it, as opposed to like, I've become a crazy person and I'm going to choke you. Like that was, so I would love to see George's original 4-hour cut. But I believe in those scenes, Bail Organa actually says he was going to fund the rebellion. See how I bring shit full circle? I'm told that's a gift. So let's take a look at some more comments here. Is that Sith look, Adam, kind of scary, says Rick Hunter. Well, I am wearing a Darth Vader hoodie, dude. Episode 3 video game equals childhood, says commenter 38. That is a good video game. I played it a lot on the original Xbox. The alternate ending of that game is awesome, where you can play as Anakin and have him defeat Obi-Wan. Spoilers for a video game ending from 10, 11 years ago, but you can kill Obi-Wan, and then you become Darth Vader, but you're like healthy Darth Vader, with Anakin's body, and you can, like, the Emperor comes because he was on his way to you anyway, if you remember the movie. And he comes out, he's like, "Our quest has been fulfilled," or whatever. And he hands him a lightsaber. And he hands him the lightsaber or something like that. And then Anakin's like, "No one will oppose me." And he just kills the Emperor right there and then. And he's like, I'm doing the Emperor's voice. Anakin basically is like, "I am the Emperor now. Who wants to fuck with me? I'm legit as shit." You get it. It'd be a little different if it was written that way, right? Let's see. Any other questions or anything? Otherwise, I will go back to the list if you guys have anything else. Chicago Legends. Yes, Bulls. Derrick Rose. Sad to see him go, but, it is signed. How cool is that? So go Cubs. They won. Woo! Rogue One needed more OG start music with the new track sort of sucked. Commenter 38. Thank you. I love you, dude. Yes. So this was the first Star Wars film that John Williams did not compose. Obviously, elements of his score were used, but I've also recently learned they apparently only had like 4 weeks to do this score. I mean, like literally, they started this score sometime like in November of this year, I think it was. And so that, with that in mind, you kind of go, oh, okay, all right, that makes sense. But then you have to wonder why the hell it took so long. But I'm betting it has something to do with the fact they had all these reshoots, and Disney clearly was unhappy with the initial cut of the film. So it is what it is. But ultimately, you got a good movie. I liked this film a lot. But yeah, the score is certainly not anything memorable. Though Force Awakens didn't have the most memorable score either. It just made more of an impression because it was John Williams doing it. But when you really think about it, the Force Awakens score didn't really do much for you either. I've listened to it a lot more since then, and I will check out the Rogue One score, but neither one actually had particularly impressive scores. The last time I saw, or heard, I should say, some Star Wars music where I was like, yeah, okay, this is doing something, was Duel of Fates. Not Duel of Fates, because that was Phantom Menace. The one at the end of Revenge of the Sith, whatever that was called, where Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting, that was a good piece of music. But yeah, it is what it is. What else we got here? PS2 games are dirt cheap. Yeah, I played Revenge of the Sith on the OG Xbox. It performs better. It's backwards compatible to 360 if you want. Check that out. That's how I did it, but to each their own. I think it was on the GameCube as well, though I'm not totally sure about that. Do you really think they tried to make Rogue One more child-oriented? No, because if they did, they failed. Like, this movie is not really intended for kids. It's not bloody, but it is a violent film where a lot of the characters die. Well, you guys know this because you're here for spoilers. But yeah, all the characters die, basically. And yeah, I don't really think this was intended for children in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, no. The only thing the kids are going to get out of it is, like, occasionally they'll laugh at something that K2SO says, and they'll recognize C3PO and stuff for a second. But beyond that, no. This is kind of it's a dark subject matter in a lot of ways. I don't think this was really intended for kids. So if the original version of this was much grittier, which it might have been, it might have been too gritty to the point of even adults liking it. Because, I mean, you have to understand how these movies are made. They go through a lot of test audiences, and they get a lot of feedback before they release the thing. So, yeah, I don't know. But I don't think it was ever intended for children. I think that it was just to tone it down. I just saw Old Games 1000. The film was terrible. Okay, dude, I'm very curious. Like, what didn't you like about the movie? Referring to Rogue One. While we wait to hear back from him, Lucas says it was way more violent, but they needed to wrap it up, and I feel like they did it nicely. Yeah. Lots of battles. All right, so I know a lot of you are either kids yourselves or you have kids. What age range would you say that this fit in? If you saw this with kids or you are a kid and it had any effect on you, I'm just curious what the cutoff there is, because Commenter 38. I talked a little bit about Forrest Whitaker in this. The short version of this, I thought his performance was really kind of weird, and he was oddly out of place, because he didn't really do anything. Like, he was a source for the plot. I mean, it's clear that a lot of what happened with him was a lot of his stuff was cut out for reshoot purposes. But the final performance that we had in the film of him was odd, and he, for no reason, just says, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna die on this planet, who gives a shit. Like, that was dumb. And I realized that there must have been a reason for that, and I guarantee it had to do with reshoots. I would bet pretty much anything that he died in some other circumstance in that temple thing, and it was grittier, it was worse. Maybe, Cassian or whatever his name was, he came in and shot him or something. Like, there could have been any number of reasons that he was unable to get out of that situation. And then the final cut, they're like, yeah, Forrest, so you don't actually die the way we had you die before because it was too violent or whatever. So now you have to just decide to not go because we didn't film anything with you in the rest of the movie, and you can't be there. I think that's what happened, because there was no real reason for him to be like, I am like the rebellion, I want to crush all the Empire. All right, man, let's go. We're going to go kill some Imperials. Nah, fuck it. It's just, I hated that. That was dumb. He should have died from something else. Just not him going, nah, I'm good. You do you. I didn't like that at all. We got people saying 12 to 50, 15 plus, 16 plus. At least 13. Sorry, guys, I don't usually drink on these things, but I'm thirsty. You like my Con Bravo thing? I've got lemons in it. I like lemon water. Lemons in your water, man. Makes water better. Last 25 minutes were great. First half was boring. That's what Old Games 1000 says. Thought the film had too much going on. There was no character development. Who is Forrest Whitaker's character? What is the point of the film? There's no reason to care about any of the characters. Yeah, so for character development, like I talked about earlier, yeah, that the character development was not great in this film. But upon second viewing, it is a lot better. Largely because it's less confusing. But I agree the first half is kind of jumbled in a lot of ways. The point of the film should be obvious. It's to get the plans to the Death Star. But the second half was amazing. Thinking about Darth Vader more. So did you guys notice this in the film? This is also the first Star Wars film when you go to a planet where they like label what the planet is. Like they said it was Jeddah, and then there was one that was like an anagram of Obi-Wan, which made me facepalm. It was like Wanabo or something. I did not like that. I was like, come on, could you just not, like, that's not even fan service. That's just like a child would have thought to do that. But the one planet in the entire film that they did not notify us of was the volcanic planet that Vader is on. I guarantee that's Mustafar. Mustafar is where he, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, he got cut up and he fell in the lava and all that shit and got destroyed and whatever. Apparently in Star Wars Legends and stuff, and even going back to Empire and The Empire Strikes Back and the mock-up work they did for that, Vader was always meant to have some sort of castle or temple or something on a volcanic planet. So I think, yeah, that's probably Mustafar. Yeah, some people are saying it's Mustafar. And what I read was basically the reason he keeps it on Mustafar, even though it seems like the last place you would want to go because it's like horrible memories. The logic for the character is that it constantly fuels his hatred and his pain, which I guess he wants. And it's basically where Anakin died and where Vader was born. So that's, I guess, why he does that. Because, Vader's obviously a very complex character. It's just he's never been presented all that well because all of his backstory came from the prequels, which were not handled well. And yes, Lucas, that is correct. This is this water bottle in particular, which is filled with coconut milk currently. I know it's kind of a weird thing to just drink, but this is from the Stanford Court in San Francisco. Hung out there with Lucas. Lucas, you tell him. People saying if I work out because I drink a bunch of water. What? I clearly don't work out. Look at me, dude. What are my thoughts on the use of CGI for Tarkin? So this stream, once it's done, is going to... The full thing will be available to watch later if you want to. I talked a lot about that at the beginning. Short version is... I liked it. Initially, I thought it was kind of weird. Second viewing, I thought, yeah, it's great. We got a lot of people watching. Wow, 134 of you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for liking the video. I know a bunch of you did that because of YouTube's new bullshit, and I appreciate that, though I don't want to bother you guys with that stuff. So if you want to like it, I appreciate it. If not, don't do it. But yeah, all right. So I'm going to focus. I'm gonna go back to one of my subjects while you guys. I'm again bring up subjects for particularly Rogue One you guys want to talk about, and we could talk about them. Otherwise, I'll go back to some of this stuff. Basically, the ending. I don't know, Lucas. Just tell him stuff. God, Lucas, you better not. I told you, dude. I told you. All right, just be careful, everybody. Lucas. Make him be careful. All right. The ending of the film, I liked obviously the ending of that movie is like insane, where it completely builds up to the events of A New Hope and everything. And that sequence, of course, when Vader goes all horror movie villain on everybody. Oh, that was fucking awesome. That was just so many different kinds of awesome. Man. Oh, God. But, yeah, I really liked that. And Actually, you know what, guys? I've actually covered like everything on my list now that I look at it, because you guys have asked me a lot of the exact same questions. So I guess I'll just open it up completely now to whatever Star Wars stuff or Rogue One stuff you guys want to talk about. Let's try to keep it on Star Wars. I'm trying not to focus on like, you know, video games or sports or anything too different. But yeah, let's try to keep it within Star Wars. And sometimes if I don't answer your question, then it's just because there's too many things moving along on the screen. Lucas, okay. Raymond, I try not to put too many admins in. Lucas, you don't have to do that. Do I think they're overdoing Star Wars? I think we kind of already talked about this earlier. You guys can check that out. Chicago, I didn't do that. That was Lucas. Damn it! I said you don't fuck up. Bad, Lucas. Bad. Sorry, Raymond. Yeah, no. With Star Wars, it's hard to assess because we're not used to this much Star Wars content. So we'll see. I don't want to get Star Wars fatigue. But I kind of already talked about that. Like, I don't want it to become like Call of Duty, where it's just a thing that happens so annually, people just get really, really sick of it. But I don't represent everybody. I personally would love to see a ton of Star Wars, but, we'll see. Will I do some films? I have done short films on this channel. They're not part of our Quick Shoot series. And I have done other ones, but I never bothered to upload them because I found that when I did that, people don't give a fuck. They're like, where's the video games? So I'm like, fuck it. If you're interested, there's a playlist of a few that are up here, and that's about it. There's others that exist, but maybe one day we'll see. How well does Rogue One tie in with the other films? Says Atari Dude. Fucking great. I thought it was perfect, and it literally ends where A New Hope begins. I mean, I would think, Atari Dude, I really hope you've seen the movie, because otherwise, why are you asking that, dude? Because remember, this is full spoilers, so there's no guilt in this chat for talking about spoilers. This is a spoiler friendly zone. Go nuts. But yeah, I thought it tied in extremely well. Opinion of the Unleashed games. Force Unleashed, like I said earlier, my buddy Matt Sloan voiced Darth Vader in both of those games. I fucking love that first game. Force Unleashed was fantastic. Force Unleashed 2, I was not as big of a fan of. I played Force Unleashed once, a ton of times, but second one I barely got through it. Just not because it was like hard. I was fucking bored, which was too bad. We know now that it was the entire team that did that game wanted more time to do it. They wanted like another 6 months to a year, because they said if we do it in the time frame you want, then like we'll at best get like a 6 out of 10 game, and most places actually ended up giving them about a 6 out of 10. What did you guys think of the Clone Wars movie? You guys ever see that one? That was like the one that people forget even exists, and it's canon because it takes place right before the Clone Wars TV show, and it's always hard to convince people to watch the Clone Wars TV show, because if they have to start with Clone Wars, the movie, it's tough because that Clone Wars movie is not good. That movie, I actually have about as hard of a time watching that as I do Attack of the Clones, whereas the Clone Wars show is phenomenal, but that first movie is like, let's just get through this so that we get to the show. Same kind of goes with Rebels Season 1. Rebels Season 1 is not good. It's just like, it just came off like when Disney had just got the property, so it was the first thing they were doing with it, and they were just kind of going to like, this is what people know. Hey, I'm a Jedi, and the Empire is bad. Like, everybody run from the Empire, they're so scary, but I'm the last Jedi, and I'm gonna protect us. Like, it's just, it just came off as fucking retarded. And but clearly the writing team really, really amped it up, because in Season 2, it's fantastic. I haven't seen Season 3 yet, so I'm not sure. I meant to say do more films. This is from Gecko 1993. I meant to say do more films, actually like those, referring to my short films. But if you aren't doing more, have you considered doing voice acting? I love your, well, that's where my drink goes, from the SNES video. I don't even remember what voice that was. Well, that's where my drink goes. I mean, I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember what impression did. Although, thank you. I do. It doesn't really count. I do voices and stuff for my other channel, Game Society Pimps. I do like Mickey Mouse and Stitch. Like, it's kind of hard to do this on the spot, but.
Hi, everybody. This is Mickey Mouse, and I own Darth Vader. Yeah, that's right. Darth Vader is my motherfucking bitch.
I also do the Emperor, although this is apparently German Emperor.
Then there's Stitch. My Stitch, unfortunately, is a little bit less friendly. He's a lot more rapey. Yeah, he likes rape.
My Stitch is insane. But if you can watch all that, again, on my other channel, Game Society Pimps, just look for the Disneyland Connect Adventures series. Do I prefer Rey or Jin? Interesting question, that media guy 150. In just their single films, I would say Jin, I think. I think, even though she's not presented as well, like what she wants and what her motivations are, clearly she has more of a backstory. It's just never given to us correctly. Whereas Rey is intentionally set up to be like mysterious. And then when you actually see her, she's charming. Like that's all there. She's charming, lovable character, etc. But like she's like, I grew up on this planet and I've been here my whole life. Like that's kind of a watered down explanation, I realize, but I think that's the way I would have to go with it for now. Jesus, Adam, the voices side of you is more scary than the Sith looks. Great. Brinsley just got back from watching Rogue One. What'd you think of it? Does it matter we don't see Death Troopers in films after Rogue One? I don't even think we saw them in this film. Isn't the Death Troopers like a video game only thing? I mean, the black ones aren't necessarily Death Troopers, right? And they can be task force troopers. They don't necessarily have to be in, combat operations. It's like not seeing Green Berets like on the battlefields. Like you don't. That's not their job. That's not where they would be. Do you have Ghostbusters on Genius? I think you mean Ghostbusters on Genesis. Yes, I do. Do I think George Lucas is an idiot? No. No one who accomplished that can be an idiot. He's not the most competent director, but an idiot? No. He's a brilliant storyman, a brilliant storyteller, and obviously a brilliant businessman, and a great philanthropist too. Like, and he's just a generous individual. You guys know, I mean, George Lucas gets a ton of shit because what? Because he made a couple of bad movies. Seriously? The guy sold Star Wars for $4.4 billion and donated it all to like the U.S. educational system. He didn't keep that money, and he could have sold Star Wars for like $30 billion. It was ranked at, but he literally sold it to the only company that could even afford to scratch the surface of that, which was Disney. No, like who else was going to be able to do that? All these other companies that aren't doing very well. No, he handed it to the right guys, and with that money, he's like, there you go. Chicago Legends. I'd love to be the voice of Mickey, but the problem with Mickey is, as much as I like playing him, my version of him is very vulgar and evil, and it's because he's not. The truth is, Mickey Mouse is not that interesting of a character. The best thing he can do is like,
oh, hi everybody, welcome to Disneyland.
Like, he doesn't do much else. He doesn't get movies. He doesn't get media anymore. He's just the guy they bring out on, Disney on Ice. Like,
oh, yeah, thanks for being here, folks. So good to see all of you. We have such a crazy show. Minnie and I are so excited to see you.
But like, that's all he ever does. So like, it's not that interesting of a character to play. The only thing that makes him interesting to play is when you go what you think he really would be like, which is just a fucking bitter, angry old man. That's the part I like. What do you think about Diego Luna playing Cassian Andor character? I thought Diego Luna did a very good job. I didn't remember the character's name initially on first viewing. Second viewing, I did as Cassian, or admittedly, I called him Casio a couple of times, like the keyboards. But yeah, I liked him. I thought Diego Luna did a really good job in that role. Thank you everybody for the the Mickey Mouse compliments. I opened my water bottle too much. Let's see, more comments, guys. Rick Hunter really is scared by the voices. Sorry, dude. THX1138 is amazing. Are you referring to George Lucas's first film? If so, I will respectfully disagree. I will leave it at that. What about the special editions? All right, so I know a lot of people think it's like sacrilege to make a lot of changes to those movies and stuff, but the truth is, in most cases, I agree with the changes. There are definitely ones I don't like. I don't like, obvious ones like Greedo's, Han shot first and all that shit. Greedo shot first, I don't like. Obviously, Han shot first. I don't like, especially on the Blu-ray sets, Vader yelling no arbitrarily when he throws Palpatine down. Stuff like that, I don't like. But a lot of the changes actually made perfect sense and were good. Some changes were unnecessary, but not necessarily all that detrimental. Like the Jabba the Hutt scene in A New Hope that was shot and never used, and then they added it in. It doesn't add anything to the narrative. It's just kind of there because they're like, hey, look, we had it planned. That scene doesn't really work in hindsight. I liked it more when I was younger, but then when you get older, you realize it's really dumb because like it didn't work because he has to like step on his tail and all that shit. And that scene doesn't work. But for the most part, I think a lot of those changes are fine. And here's another thing that people have to understand about George Lucas. So here's a little behind the scenes in film industry. When it comes to visual effects, there was really only two guys in the game. There's a company called Weta, and there's ILM, which was George Lucas's company, and they would do all like CG effects for a lot of movies and stuff, right? Now, contrary to popular belief, a lot of big studios don't do their own effects. They outsource to places like this. I believe Weta is based in Australia, and Lucasfilm is based in San Francisco, California, United States. And so a lot of companies were outsourcing to Weta over ILM, and George Lucas wanted to keep his people working. So often what he would do is he would have them just update things in Star Wars so these people would frankly have jobs. But part of we now know after the sale of Star Wars, and well, really the sale of Lucasfilm, we now know a large condition of that sale was that Disney now has to use ILM for not only Star Wars future projects, but anything Disney does, like Marvel stuff, in their own in-house projects, like they have to use them. It was like a condition of the sale, at least that's what I've heard. And that basically he did that. He sold it all to keep people employed, and he didn't even keep the money. So you can't call that guy an idiot. Like that guy is a really good human being. I would challenge anyone to be that good of a person who's just like, yeah, I made all of this and I'm giving it all away. And, he was going to build a museum in my city, Chicago, but we had this stupid parks department that prevented it from happening. It's like, a guy's going to spend $1 billion to build us a museum where he donates all of this artwork and Star Wars stuff to just build us a museum and donate all proceeds to the city. And our city was stupid enough to not let him do it. This is fucking city embarrassment. Chicago legends, dude, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, the Jabba scene, nothing, everything MLKK, I'm trying to read your comment. Quote, the Jabba scene, nothing, everything Jabba says were told by Greedo in the previous scene. I assume you're saying that we learned nothing in the scene, which I agree with. Yes, the next one will be the Young Solo film. That is correct. Well, the next anthology film, not the next movie. Does Lucasfilm still design costumes? I'm not entirely certain what Lucasfilm does independently, because obviously now they answer to Disney instead of George specifically. The idiot theory comes from the fact that he made the prequels. Dude, he made like a shit ton of money for him and his people and kept a ton of people working. How could you sit down and actually make a better movie than the prequels? Like right now, go. I don't think so. Like they're not well told stories. No one disputes that. But they're not, like, to call him an idiot. I can go so far as to say, yes, he's a bad storyteller, sort of. He's a bad director. He's not even a bad storyteller. He's a bad director. But everything else, no. How old were you when you saw your first Star Wars movie? And can you describe the moment when you became a Star Wars fanboy? Well, I'm not a Star Wars fanboy because people forget the word fanboy means you actually dislike anything else that would be comparable. So to call me a fanboy would mean I don't like Star Trek or something like that, which is bullshit. I fucking love Star Trek. I'm 30 years old, dude. I don't give a fuck about fanboyism. I never understand that. As for when I first saw Star Wars, that I remember, 97 is when I saw the special editions. That's when I was first exposed to Star Wars, where I actually cared enough to watch it. When I was a kid, my cousins would watch like the older VHS tapes of it, like a lot, and I would see it in the background. I'd see like, you know, the Empire stuff and all that shit, but you know, like with Hoth, with the Imperial Walkers and all that crap. But I just, you know, it never, for some reason, it didn't captivate me until like 97. But that's probably because I was like 10 or 11 when I finally saw it. Whereas when my cousins were watching it, I would have probably been like 4 or 5. I don't think I would have been old enough to really appreciate any part of it. I think, yeah, really when I saw the special editions on VHS, as weird as that is to sound, that's when I first was like, yeah, this is a pretty cool thing. And then I found out Phantom Menace was coming, and I was like, yeah. And I was at the appropriate age range when I first saw Phantom Menace, where I was like, no, this isn't that bad. I like this. And even to this day, I'll defend Phantom Menace in a lot of ways. There's a lot of parts I can't, obviously. But Phantom Menace, I look at it and I go, they tried. You can tell they tried. It's shot on film. It's shot on locations. They tried. They didn't deliver. They tried. We now know more about the production of that movie. Again, from like 2015, new information reveals. We now know a lot more about the production of Phantom Menace, which was that George did not want to direct that movie. He actually, to go back to Aaron Carver here, dude, the one who keeps calling George an idiot. George knew he wasn't a good director. He didn't want to direct that movie. He actually tried to get a lot of other people to direct that for him. He tried to get, we know he tried to get Steven Spielberg. We know he tried to get Robert Zemeckis, and I forget who else. I think he went to Francis Ford Coppola, and he went to a couple other people, and all of them turned him down flat. We don't know why exactly. It either has to do something with not wanting the responsibility of doing it, maybe not wanting to have to deal with George directly, although I kind of doubt that was it. And but there's also the whole thing about him using non-union directors. You guys may not know this, but back in 1983 when he was doing Return of the Jedi, he wanted to get Steven Spielberg, but he couldn't because Steven Spielberg was in the Directors Guild, and the Directors Guild absolutely hated George Lucas. For the dumbest reason ever. You know how the movie starts with a crawl and then the credits with all the actors' names and stuff come at the end of the movie? Prior to that movie, the credits were always at the beginning of the film. And it was like a union rule. Your movie has to have that stuff at the beginning of the film. And he was like, fuck that. That's not how my story is going to be told. And they kicked him out of the guild. As a result, he couldn't win Best Picture. He couldn't win an Oscar. He couldn't win any of that stuff. It was nominated for Best Picture, but it did lose to Annie Hall. And when he went to do Empire and Jedi, he had to get non-union directors to do those movies. Irvin Kershner and something Marquardt, I forget the guy's name, who did Return of the Jedi. And so I think the same problem might have still existed when he went to do Phantom Menace, is that all these directors would love to do it, but they don't want to get kicked out of the guild because you lose a lot of ability to work if you're not in the Directors Guild. Because George Lucas survived because he's fucking George Lucas. You know, he made an entire empire out of it. Funny. But the other ones couldn't necessarily do that. So yeah, but I think now that it's in Disney's hands, that doesn't matter. So, especially since nobody cares about that whole credits at the beginning of the movie bullshit anymore. Zemeckis and Spielberg turned him down because the script was shit. You got to understand, dude, directors have a lot of power to change stuff, and George Lucas he was a pretty compromising guy. If he didn't have to direct it, he kind of let filmmakers work. That's how Empire and Jedi were made. Except for, well, admittedly, Jedi he kind of meddled with towards the end, which is why the ending is kind of weird. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see how that would have worked out. Not calling him an idiot. I just think it's an interesting discussion point. It is. If you got asked to be in episode 8, would you be an X-Wing pilot or a TIE pilot? X-Wing, because a TIE pilot, it doesn't matter. I'm just in a mask. If George had gotten Quentin Tarantino, we would have seen some ish. I assume you mean shit. Possibly. I do wish that George had somehow found someone else to do Attack of the Clones. We saw that worked out with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Actually, a lot of people blame George Lucas. Turns out a lot of the faults for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull were Steven Spielberg, by his own admission. Like, he's the one who came up with Nuke the Fridge. George Lucas fought against that. but that was what Steven Spielberg wanted to do. Go see it for yourself. Spielberg does interviews about it. He takes a lot of the blame because he was like, oh, yeah, a lot of those weirder ideas were mine. George, yes, he wanted to do the whole aliens thing, which, yeah, that was dumb. But, yeah, it was more of a split thing than you think. Admittedly, Spielberg's heart wasn't in that one. It's just that there wasn't really any alternative. So we'll see how the next indie movie happens or what it's like, because apparently that is happening. Which is worse, politics or midichlorians? Midichlorians. I had no problem with the politics. I mean, that's not the most interesting thing to see the way it was presented, but it's not disinteresting by its nature. It's just it wasn't presented that well. Midichlorians was just kind of like, look, I know a lot of people had a big problem with that because it took away the mythology. Really, it made it seem more like, oh, it's just about what kind of blood you have, and then that's it. Yes, but I mean, it's hard for me to say that that's necessarily the worst thing ever, because we live in a scientific world where things do actually have explanations, even if we don't understand them yet. So in that world, you'd have to assume the same rules apply. Therefore, there would be things, presumably, like midichlorians that would explain that. But I think that's more of a case of, like, people just don't want to hear that shit. But, then again, maybe not. Maybe Star Wars actually is a universe where the complete mythological is possible. And that's why people didn't like it, because they always thought it was possible until that moment broke it for them. But when I saw it, it was only like 2 years after I had seen the original trilogy, and I was only a kid, so it didn't really have much of an effect on me. Jar Jar or Attack of the Clones, which is worse? Attack of the Clones. Here's the thing about Jar Jar, man. Jar Jar's annoying, but if you believe that whole Darth Jar Jar Binks theory thing, you guys should look that up because it's fascinating. Even if that's not true, which it didn't turn out to be true just because it's not canon, it didn't happen that way. But if you watch that film believing that that's true, it becomes a much better movie. And even though Attack of the Clones didn't really follow with it, it's except in a couple of nods, I guess. It is interesting. I wish Attack of the Clones had done that, because Attack of the Clones just is such a fucking boring movie. Like, Phantom Menace, for all its flaws, even there's some of the stuff on Coruscant is kind of, but the rest of the movie, even though it doesn't make much sense, isn't actually boring. Whereas Attack of the Clones is actually boring. Jar Jar is annoying, but not boring. What do you think should be the next prequel? I don't know. I mean, technically Rogue One was a prequel, and it worked out quite well. So I don't know. I don't have a specific answer for that one. What did I think of the Darth Vader hallway scene? Kind of already talked about that. Like I said, this stream will go up publicly afterwards. You guys can check it out, because I know a lot of you pop in and you just see some of it and stuff. 118 of you watching currently. Thank you very much for doing that. Yeah, I think we'll do a couple power round questions, and then I think we'll wrap this up. How's that sound, guys? So I think, yeah, we'll just do a few power round questions, and we'll get out of here. Do you think Rey is related to anyone significant? I don't know. I mean, obviously nobody knows. I keep going, I kind of want her to be, and I kind of don't want her to be. I kind of want to be surprised, I guess. I kind of like the idea that she was related to Obi-Wan in some way. But one of the theories I heard about her that I actually found fascinating is a theory. None of us know this shit. This is all bullshit until Disney says otherwise. But one of the theories I liked about Rey is that she's actually essentially the you guys aren't going to like it because of what we just talked about, but the midichlorian reincarnation of Anakin Skywalker. And the logic to that basically is she has memories that Vader has in that trippy sequence and stuff. And that's fucking weird. So it's interesting. There's a little bit more to it than that. There's videos breaking that down. I would suggest looking it up. It's just an interesting watch, even if it's not true at all. I mean, it could be as simple, oh, she's Luke's daughter. I hope not. I don't want that to be the case, but we'll see. Why are there no new Star Wars parodies like Robot Chicken? I would assume because Lucasfilm was licensing those and they were cool with it and they were 100% on board, let them use everything. Under Disney, they might be more cautious and may not allow that. One thing you got to give Disney credit for is they understand that what keeps Star Wars kind of immortal is the people's ability to talk about it and to use it. Lucasfilm under George, he never went after anybody for like infringement or any of that stuff. None of those fan films. My buddies Chad Vader, when they made that stuff, hell, I'm in that show, and he never went after them. In fact, he fucking gave Matt a job doing Vader's voice. He was always cool about shit like that. Whereas he never put content ID claims on music. I mean, he owned all of John Williams' music for those movies. No content ID claims were put out on YouTube under his watch. And to Disney's credit, they haven't really done that either, specifically with Star Wars stuff. And hopefully they keep that up. That might have been a condition of the sale. We don't know. What do I think about the Legends universe being canned? Without having read it, I mean, I've just played some of the video games and stuff. I gotta say, it made sense. You had to do it because you can't have writers come into these movies and say like, okay, you can make our new Star Wars movie, but you also have to read 1,000 different comic books and a bunch of novelizations that nobody's read for 40 years, but you have to read them all and make sure whatever story you come up with perfectly weaves inside of this fabric. No, that's insane. Plus, it would limit them in their ability to produce content, and it made perfect sense to wipe it because most people don't know about it anyway. So I agree with that decision. I just do. I know it wasn't popular when they did it. I'm sure I'd like to have some of those stories back, but the best part about that is you can take the best elements of some of those stories and bring them back. Like the guy from the Expanded Universe, blue dude, spacing on his name. He's in Rebels now. People loved him, and he was wiped out. But now they can bring him back, and they can use him where they actually want him. So stuff like that is good. I would love to see people mentioning it here. Shadows of the Empire, people would love to see that as a more flushed out story. I would too. I would. All right, going back to the whole Han Solo movie thing, I would much rather see a Dash Rendar movie than a Han Solo movie. I'm sorry, I'd rather see that shit because that's a movie about a character you don't know that well, except for people in basically our age range who played that game. You can have your brief little Han digital cameo and your brief Leia digital cameo and stuff, and you can have just a story about this interesting character and his whole adventure. And it's not, yes, Thrawn, it's Grand Admiral Thrawn. Thank you, John Gray. You can have a story about the Empire Strikes, the Shadows of the Empire that takes place in between Empire and Jedi about Dash Rendar. I'd fucking much rather see that than a Han Solo movie. Good luck though. Family Guy Star Wars thoughts. I thought they were amusing. You'll never see another one again for the same reason. The other thing about Star Wars that's interesting is I only found this out recently. So the 6 previous films, not including Clone Wars, which was distributed by Warner Brothers, the other 6 were distributed by Fox. Now, I assumed that because of the deal George had made back in 1977, that they had only distributed it and they didn't actually own any aspect of Star Wars. So when Disney bought it, they also got the 6 films. As it turns out, that's not entirely true. Fox still has a claim to 5 of them, Empire, Jedi, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Sith. But they lose all connection to those in 2020. Disney gets 100% control of those films. Unfortunately, this is going to be a problem in the future. Fox permanently retains the rights to A New Hope. It belongs in their hands. They don't own the characters. They literally own the film itself. So when you eventually want to do these like box sets and these big Blu-ray sets or whatever, they're going to have this deal where Disney and Fox always have to figure out like who gets a cut of what to put the movies in the same package together. Otherwise, you may never see those big group packages anymore. I'm hoping, and this is just me hoping, that because Fox also has like the X-Men and Disney has all the other Marvel characters and they want the X-Men back, and I'm wondering if they can make some sort of trade there where Disney's like, give us back A New Hope, because it's not like Fox can do anything with A New Hope. All they really get out of it is they get an occasional paycheck from like the Blu-ray sales and stuff. I'm hoping that they can trade that at some point so that Disney has full control over it, just so, people who buy box sets and stuff have an easier time. whatever, and in exchange they would get like rights to another Marvel character or something. But we'll see, or at least like a X-Men specific thing, because like you guys may not know this, but every time like Fox has some new X-Men show coming out, they couldn't do that without Marvel signing off on it, and we don't know what they traded to Disney in exchange. Some people are thinking they might have silently given them the Fantastic Four and then they'll announce it later, but nobody knows that. I'm just saying stuff like that would be interesting. Bane R6 says, I read Fox keeps rights to A New Hope for 20 years, Empire for 15, and Jedi for 10. I heard not that. I heard A New Hope was for the rest of whatever time, and then the other 5 are until 2020. But I guess I'm not 100% sure. So people go ahead and look that up. Do I miss Lucasfilm games? Yes. And the sad part is, I think the last game they ever made was Connect Star Wars. What a terrible way to go out. That should not have been the last one. Like Battlefront 3, not EA's shit Battlefront, but the real Battlefront 3, that should have been the final one. Or that other one they were doing, 1313 or whatever it was. But yeah. All right, guys. I'm going to do like 2 more questions and then I'm going to book here. Did I read Catalyst before watching Rogue One, says MLKK. No, I did not. That's a prequel book to a prequel movie no, I didn't read it though. I hear there's a lot of really good information in it. But no, I have not seen it. And I want to go out. All right, this one won't count because I want to go out with a Star Wars question, but am I excited for Guardians of the Galaxy 2? Yes, I am. I want to see that shit. Bane R6, also not a question, but dude, he says that also come back to Canada when you get the chance. Toy Rat is my local retro store. Dude, I was literally there last week. Surprise. All right, so I'm gonna go out with Adrian. I already talked about the Darth Jar Jar thing. You'll see it if you want when the video is done and uploaded. All right, we're gonna go out with this question. Cax117 says, any hope for Battlefront 2? I assume you mean by EA, and the answer would be, I assume so. The game was successful. I don't see why they wouldn't do it. One other thing they'll likely do is they'll take scenes from this movie. The Scarif battle will probably be in there, and they'll probably add more of their own canon battles and stuff like that. Like the Jakku battle was canon. The events of that game, that specific battle, is canon to the actual storyline. Stuff like that. So I would assume they'll do it at some point. I mean, the game made money, but I never bought it because I don't like fucking online only bullshit. Like I did the single player campaign, and that was not interesting to me. No. So if they do that, I hope they make a better single player campaign game because I don't give a fuck about online gameplay. Sorry, I don't. So with that, I guess I will bid you adieu. Thank you everybody for watching this. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you go back and watch the stream later if you missed parts of it. Thank you for hopefully leaving a like on the video because, YouTube's bullshit policies. But nevertheless, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later.